Hi everyone, welcome back. We have David Venturelli with us today, and he has some very interesting things to show us on the slide. David, welcome, and let's go for it.
Thank you, Rico. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to share my slides, if that's okay with you.
Sure, go for it.
Do you see?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Davide Venturelli. I'm here to discuss with you how quantum computing and specifically near-term quantum computing can impact the field of optimization. And I'm here to discuss as a personal individual. So I'm not here in representation of the institutions that I work for. But for context, I'd like to say a couple of things about myself and my experience, and especially at the USRA and NASA. So let's go to the outline of what I would like to discuss with you, which is essentially how humanity, the community of scientists, have identified a few ideas, a few approaches that could be promising in order to use quantum computers for solving computational problems of interest of the industrial, governmental, and scientific world. Specifically, I will mention quantum optimization algorithms of the variational kind and quantum annealing, as well as emerging hardware platforms that are, in my opinion, very interesting, and they are quantum inspired. And I will conclude by giving a shout out to multiple projects that specifically the United States government is funding, which I believe are really to watch because they will deliver a lot of very interesting breakthrough in the next few years. And I put here a little visual of the cloud of hype around quantum computing. And I really hope that some of my content will help demystifying or even clarifying the signal in the noise. About myself, I would like to say a couple of things. I am Associate Director for Quantum Computing at University Space Research Association, USRA. USRA is an interesting institution. It was founded in 1969 when the rocks from the moon came back after the Apollo 11 mission, and NASA had to work with universities. They never had to work with the academia before, and so they created this institution, which now is serving the space agency as well as other sectors of the federal government in order to advance space research and aeronautics research for the benefit of humankind. And specifically, I work for the Research Institute for Advanced Computer Science, which works in tight collaboration with NASA Ames Research Center in California, Mountain View. And my department is specifically focusing on high-performance computing, artificial intelligence, human systems integrations, and quantum computing is part of our units, and I lead that research line. The target of discussion today is the problem of combinatorial optimization. And combinatorial optimization is the problem, this is a definition that you could find online, of searching for the optimal solution of an objective. So essentially, it's the minimum of an objective function. It could be the maximum, depending on how you define your problem. In a situation where the domain, the search space, is discrete, but very large, almost uncountably large. An example of this is the book example is the traveling salesman problem, where you have many cities in a well-defined map, and you're looking for a route to pass through all the cities and come back. trying to minimize something. That could be the fuel consumption or the distance traveled, something like that. And of course, you know all the parameters of your problems, but you do not know how to find this route among the many possible. And you cannot do trial and error here, because if you try all the possible solutions and see which one is better, you would find very fast that you need to try exponentially many. And today, the best algorithms that we know to solve for the best route still take an exponential amount of time. And this is the more cities you have, the more intractable the problem becomes. And problems like this are ubiquitous in industrial domain. They arise in telecommunication, in logistics, in optimal assignment, in finance, in wireless networks. So if we had a way to solve these problems efficiently, or have better approximate solutions, something like that, that would have an impact in many, many sectors. Now, you have been in this event exposed to introductions to quantum computing by other speakers. I just want to say that a very inspirational fact about quantum computing is that we know out of theory of computational complexity that problems that are exponentially hard for the best possible classical algorithm that uses the standard tools of arithmetics, some of these problems are not that hard for a quantum computer. Not all of them, some of them, but that's very it's very inspiring. How can I say? It's an important reference point for us that we know mathematically that quantum computing is potentially more powerful than classical computing. And I want to tell you this through an example, which is very a common one, but it's always good to remind ourselves of this, which is the search in an unstructured database. If you have to find a phone number in a phone book which is scrambled, there's no order, they're not in alphabetical order, and you need to find one that you're looking for, there's no good way to do this. There's an unstructured problem. You just need to pick and randomly hope to be successful in your choice. So if you have n elements, well, if you're unlucky, it's the last one you pick that is the one you were looking for. So we say that in the worst case scenario, the computational complexity of your problem scales linearly with the number of elements. So you need n queries to the database to find what you're looking for in the worst case scenario. Now, a result of 1996 is that if you had a science fictional quantum computer, which is able to access a science fictional quantum database, and you were looking for your phone number through this science fictional quantum queries, then you would need only square root of n trials to find them with a probability 100%. So that is magical to some extent, because there's no mathematical genius anywhere on the planet that could beat this without quantum mechanics. So this shows, like in front of your eyes, that quantum computing is more powerful than classical computing, at least asymptotically, meaning like if you look at the problems from abstract point of view, where the numbers of variables is very, very large, and you care only about the to have an order of magnitude of the time that it requires to solve the problem. Now, what is interesting is, because of the engineering advances that have forward in nanotechnology and in other fields, and now we have some prototypes of quantum computers, people are crunching the numbers now, and they are starting to see, well, what does it mean in practice to try to exploit this kind of algorithms? And this is an example of a couple of papers which are rather recent in the last couple of years, where researchers have studied really what are the prefactors, what are all the actual estimates of time advantage that you would get through a quadratic speedup, such as moving from n operation to square root of n operations. And somewhat surprisingly, but not so much for people in the field, it doesn't seem to be very practical. Meaning that even if you have this magical quantum computer that is able to do this operation, defining this algorithm, it will still require an enormous amount of quantum memory and hundreds of millions of qubits. By now, you should know what a qubit is if you listen to the other people. And I didn't give a very introductory talk. I just went directly to the meat. But and indeed, this is a problem, because we do have some reference points in mathematics of why quantum computing is interesting, but at the end of the day, they don't seem to guarantee a business advantage. Those reference points in mathematics that we discovered. And also, all these algorithms that we can prove mathematically, they give us an advantage. They require some sort of error correction, some perfection that is not achievable very easily. Even if in the last few years, we have spectacular advances in trying to make computers more fault tolerant and actually closer to the pen and paper version of our dream algorithms. So the situation is that if we had to base our investment and enthusiasm towards quantum computing based on the theorems that were invented by mathematical geniuses, we would still not be that excited. But we are very excited. And we are very excited because we believe, many of us believe, you can calculate it and you can implement it physically. And at the point where you measure your quantum computer, you obtain with some probability what you were looking for. So if you repeat the algorithm many, many times, you have a statistics. And if you did your job well enough, with a reasonable probability, you'll find what you were looking for. And you see, the problem of optimization is an interesting problem, because you need to navigate this large space of possible solutions. It's exponentially large, to find a tiny space of solutions which are good, which are closer to the optimal that you're looking for. And so designing a quantum algorithm is non-trivial, because you need to navigate this space, and you cannot simulate it in a normal computer. You need a quantum computer to simulate a quantum algorithm. That's why we need quantum computers in the first place. And the way you evaluate whether you did a good job is actually very empirical. What you're going to do, you're going to design an algorithm that you think will work. You're going to put some parameters that are, modifying the way you move this arrow in this mathematical exponentially large space. You're going to try it out. And then if it doesn't work very well, you're going to change a little bit. You're going to tweak the parameters and try again and try again. And then at the end of the day, you're going to see for the best parameter you have, whether you beat or not what you would have done if you didn't have a quantum computer. That's essentially what people are doing right now to test quantum computers. And there's a whole benchmarking philosophy and benchmarking literature about this. In particular, you ask yourself, after you design your quantum algorithm, after you set the parameters and say, okay, maybe I calibrated well enough. You ask yourself, well, did I beat some good classical method? I mean, something that a PhD would have designed without a quantum computer. If I didn't, well, maybe I shouldn't even publish this. I just, keep working, okay? And I don't tell anyone, and I continue, okay? But if I did, then I ask myself, well, wait a second, do I beat all good classical methods? I mean, do I actually beat, all the literature out there? If I spend, I don't know, 5 hours searching for all the papers that solve this problem, I beat them all? Well, if I do, if I don't, then I can say that I achieved only a limited quantum speedup. So I beat only some of them. For example, I beat simulated annealing, branch and bound tree search, some methods. But if I do, then I ask myself, well, do I beat all the possible methods I can think of, even those that are not published yet, that nobody has done before? Because it would be crazy to beat the performance that I just achieved. Well, if I actually don't meet this last question, then what I can claim is quantum advantage. While if I instead beat all the possible method I can think of, even in the future, then I achieve what is called the quantum supremacy. The quantum advantage is a situation where essentially it would be in practice not a good idea to use a classical method versus a quantum method. And quantum supremacy is the situation where no matter how many dollars or time you spend, you will never be able to beat a quantum computer doing things. Now, what's the situation? The situation is, as of today, March 9, 2021, there is some demonstration of quantum speedup limited against some specific classical methods, which are good, but not necessarily the best. There is no real quantum advantage that has been demonstrated for application problems, like for real world problems. Nobody has actually found a reason for which is now today better to use a quantum computer. And there are some demonstrations, I would say one, but maybe there are a couple, of quantum supremacy on problems, though, that are not useful. I mean, they are essentially the problem of self-simulating the machine itself. The world quest is to find an interesting, useful application where we could have quantum advantage. And there are many metrics to orient ourselves into the story. And what I want to say is that the supremacy metric is just a milestone, and it's actually a news of the. I would say every month there's a new paper that essentially describes whether a classical computer can actually beat a quantum computer on a specific task. Yeah. The last one is a few days ago, where the Chinese Academy of Science scientists have proven that the original paper of Google on quantum supremacy actually could be beaten by a classical computer in 5 days of computation. But still, there are advantages. A very large classical computer, but there are still advantages using quantum computers. And of course, if you move from 50 qubits to 70, that's no longer possible. And of course, if you change the statistical test a little bit, it's no longer possible. So the battle is still on. And then, but quantum advantage is still a frontier that we still don't have. We're moving into this situation where we have computers with a limited number of qubits and a fidelity, which is the error probability of our circuits, of our algorithm, which is rather high. We believe that as we improve the fidelity, as we improve the number of qubits, we will hit this quantum advantage. There are companies such as IBM that are promoting some metrics that would give us an idea of how we're doing towards quantum advantage, such as quantum volume, which is a metric, kind of an arbitrary metric, to just tell you roughly how many qubits for how long you can run for a specific algorithm. And I know that the companies are challenging each other to see which one is doing better according to this metric or similar metrics. I want to give a map. It's only personal opinion. This is not exhaustive list about the technology out there. I believe others in this session have done it too, but I want to say, so in the near term, we have two approaches, which is the gate model, NISQ quantum computing, and analog quantum computing, which can address the problem of combinatorial optimization. And we have technology which is based on classical methods of semiconductors, but physics inspired, using neuromorphic or bifurcation machines or other sort of dynamical systems to solve the problem, which are already very competitive with the state of art. They're not properly quantum, but they're similar to quantum. And still in the low quantumness regime, you have also optical devices, photonic devices, which are solving optimization problems by using a mix of quantum and classical optic. Then you have all the superconducting qubit stack, which is a different level of maturity, but big tech is competing very, very hard to try to create the fault-tolerant quantum computers here. And then you have technology built on cold atoms, either ions or neutral atoms, which is becoming very, very interesting in these days, because they cannot benefit from the same level of maturity of the superconducting technology, but still they are very they have their uniqueness, and they might actually leapfrog the others eventually. Then you have all these speculative approaches, which are very long term, related to methods which are not proven yet in experimental settings, but they're still very interesting, at least from an intellectual standpoint. My time is running out.
Yeah, time is up, but can you wrap up? Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to wrap up by giving you only one point of reference here, which is the fact that if you want to stay up to date on quantum optimization, there are two methods which are particularly useful. One is quantum annealing, and other is the quantum approximate optimization algorithms. Those are very tightly related methods. And I suggest you to have a look at the literature here. And if you want to keep in touch with both me and the literature, there is this newsletter, which is a digest, a monthly digest of all the papers in many fields, including optimization, categorized. So if you follow this, you're able to follow essentially the literature. And there are government programs which are targeting specifically quantum optimization that you should be aware of. And I'm putting here the links for your interest. And I'm very excited to also disclose that I collaborated in a center at Fermilab in Chicago, where we're trying to build a new quantum computer, which is with new technology, cavity superconducting radio frequency technology, which we believe could have also unique advantages. This is an era where we need to co-design software and hardware in order to demonstrate advantage. And this is not something that NASA is uncomfortable with, because we actually did this for HPC and for many other unproven technology back in the day. And so also maybe that's why also the NASA Quantum AI Lab and other laboratories such as Fermilab are sufficiently open-minded and far-sighted. They look ahead sufficiently far to know to invest in this technology. And with this, I conclude. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any question or if you want to discuss.
Thank you very much, David. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We'll definitely discuss further with you. And if it's possible, can you share us a PDF version of your presentation slide so we can share with some of the audiences? That'll be awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Rico. Have a good continuation.
You too.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, and thank you.